Hello everyone, it's your favorite FGC VTuber. So today, as you guys see from the topic of the video today, we're going to be talking about people saying that fighting games aren't an inherently harder genre than other ones. And I'm going to, obviously you guys already know, especially in this channel, I think that's a little bullshit. And this is coming from someone who plays every single genre like ever, right? So the main topic of the conversation is they're saying is that obviously fighting games are hard. Everyone knows that in a sense. I will start off by saying that fighting games are only as hard as you want to make them. Like, fighting games are actually pretty easy to play, just impossibly hard to master. That's the best way to put it. The thing that determines a fighting game's difficulty is, like, if you just want to press button, like, what your expectations are. If you're just in there to press buttons and play with friends, then you're fine, right? Like, if you're not trying to play anyone that's actually good, then, you know, relatively, right? That's why Street Fighter 2 was one of the most popular. Back then, like, it was one of the first fighting games of all time. Everybody sucked. No one was playing that shit serious. Then people made it serious, and it evolved into what it is today, right? Into the modern fighting game. So let's sink in is just because fighting games are notoriously hard doesn't mean you should stay away from them, which kind of gets to my point where I think this whole debate is still stupid in the first place. Like, bro, you know, it's a dumb debate when there are people outside, like, again, it's notorious. Like, no other genre is, maybe two more I could say, that are as notorious for being hard. When we have even FPS players like, no, you're a god. If you can play fighting games, you're godlike. Like, that dude, he was glazing me, and thank you, random FPS sir. Like you know what I'm saying? He apparently had the best FPS, and even he's like, fighting game players are fucking trash. Like, let that sink in, bro. Even if the best of the best from other genres can be like, nah, y'all are built different, bro. I think they kind of have a point. But one of the things I want to really specifically talk about to explain my statement is right now the biggest reason is these two big figures in the FGC. I guess I won't really name whatever. And it's two other ones big. We're not even as big as them, but we're more renowned. And the better way to put it is that, to me, why I feel like their statement isn't as strong as, say, ours is because, one, that they're not as well versed as me and the other dude. The other dude's he has a YouTube channel. He talked about, he made a whole article, very well articulated and everything. And even another big FGC person who kind of agrees with me is James Chen, I believe. I could be wrong. Even though he can have some semi-bad takes here and there, but for the most part, he comes from a very well versed and grounded place. But my whole thing being is that, again, we actually play other genres. Like, one of the biggest things that I hear Sajam for one of them is if someone who keeps putting this, and he's absolutely wrong. It's funny how Sajam says that in someone else, and they both disagree with certain points. Like, dude, you're either with each other 100 or you're not. Me and the dude shake hands, like, we're 100%. So he was saying, like, oh, let's see, like, Stacey Steve, oh, because, you know, look at him, see, he's good at fighting games, and then he's getting clapped in shooters. It's like, first of all, it's like, dude, he's like never ever played shooters. You know, that's one thing when you don't even ever play it, right? That's not a fair comparison. And what if someone just inherently sucks or some shit? It's different when you grew up on something and then it's gonna be a harder learning curve. Like, that's just inherent, right? Also, to further point to prove, I feel like FPS is an example. It's like, homie, like, he's able to shoot and do stuff. The other dude just shot him faster. That's all it is, right? Nothing too crazy. Like, he is playing the game. You know, I think one of the inherent things that makes fighting games just harder right off the bat is that the fact that being able to play the game is more evident. Like, you could, like, someone could suck in COD, but then they could be like less sucky, and then it's hard to tell the person who sucks compared to someone who's like good. You know, whereas in a fighting game, bro, from every single rank difference, it is a massive difference. You can see, like, oh, this dude's better. Like, it's just clear as day, right? Sorry, I went simming off what I was saying. Like I said, we play a lot of variety games, so we can't come up with the excuse of, oh, I just don't play. Like, that's a very huge factor, right? Like, we need something, you know, again, an unbiased take. That's what matters the most. Can you take, and I played like, dude, fighting games were the last genre I got into, right? So let that sink in. And then the other thing is that these guys aren't good. Like, I'm not getting me wrong, Sajam and the other dude, okay, they're good. Like, but they're not as good as me. The other dude apparently is a pretty top tier TVC player or SVC. I mean, and this is me we're talking about. Enough said, the conversation's over, right? Like, I'm literally one of the best gamers of all time. So if anyone's gonna tell you what the fuck difficulty is me. Like, you know, I've been in and out of the fucking the forums and shit, motherfuckers who know about hard games. I mean, good example, anyone who knows about hard shit knows that even Dark Souls, hardcore Dark Souls players will say, oh yeah, no, Dark Souls isn't hard. It's meant to be beaten, right? Like, that's the kind of community I come from. Like, hard games players. And I've never once heard a hard game player ever say, oh, fighting games are easy. Never once. Or, oh, like, no, everybody knows that they're hard. Even other ones who don't necessarily play fighting games like that, they respect and know how notoriously hard games are, right? So look at that. Within a community that knows what actually fucking hard is, ain't none of them sitting here and scoffing at fighting. None of them, bro. This is why, again, like, Sajam and what's his face come from a good place, but they genuinely don't. Their problem is that they grew up in fighting games. That's mainly what they play. And to them, it's a lot harder because at the end of the day, they're not really talented. They're fairly mediocre. And they just got good at fighting games from playing a lot, right? Like, I'm a good example. I know an old couple that plays fighting games. Like, I would say fighting games have a shorter learning curve, actually, to just hop in, right? Because they don't have to move a camera or whatever. Like, they're like, I feel like if you're someone like the inherent difference between aiming, like, you can ask Clockwork, right? Codes, how much have you seen even your relatives struggle with aiming and shooting at the same time? Explain to the chat.
They are pretty horrible, and hurts my soul to watch them just run, stop, aim, and shoot. And run again.
Yeah. So, and people who do that, guess what? They have a much easier time. Oh, they don't have to control the camera. They could just go in, press buttons. Like, you know, fighting games actually have a much easier learning curve at the start for a lot of people, right? Like even easier than say like a Naruto fight or something with the 3D camera, like just that little simple thing, right? So yeah, every game has its own. I mean, even like another example when I talk about learning curves is like Resident Evil. Like Resident Evil, believe it or not, the newer ones are harder. It's like, oh no. But the main thing is like because of the tank controls it gets hard to get used to. The camera just disorients you. But if you play Resident Evil 5 and 4, then go backwards, it's a lot easier to get used to it because now you've gotten accustomed to the controls. What makes it easier is the fact that the enemy number is much lower and it's less reliant on skill. It's far more about memorization and item management. I mean, which in Resident Evil 4 and 5 it still is, but skill has been added as a measurement on there. And remember, there's that extra, oh, now it's not just the cameras. For someone, it could be harder, right? A lot of the things difficulty can be very opinionated in a lot of senses, right? That's why I said it has to come from someone that's unbiased. And even then, there are things that can be inherently like harder than others, right? Some people could suck with shotguns, SMGs, snipers. Like for me, I'm godlike talented with grapplers, right? And if there's a thing I realized what the metric was for fighting games, and this is why to me, automatically the number one thing, and it's part of the conversation, why fighting games, in my opinion, are just straight up built different from every other genre, right? And that is the concept of notation, or I should say is motion in fighting. And on top of that, no other game or genre, and you notice this, you see it in some, where if you don't know how to play the game, it is very evident front and center, right? Like you could just sit here, mash, and have fun, right? Doesn't matter, right? But if you have to sit here and like, oh, I have to actually know my spacing, press the right button. In shooters, you don't have that kind of thing. You can, as long as you know how to move and shoot, you're fine. You don't have to actually know. Maybe you can know how to knife or later. Like my good example, my dad can play Call of Duty, no problem. Absolutely. And you can even play MKVDC, no problem. He'll tell you they'll be about the same kind of difficulty kind of thing, right? Sure, whatever. But if he were to get good, he would say, oh yeah, no, I could see myself, you know, whatever. He would look at COD and be like, oh, it's just mainly time. Like, oh, just being faster. But in a fighting game, he would be able to tell you, like, oh, yeah, no, having to memorize. Everyone says, oh, memorizing the combos, which is oddly the easier thing in fighting games is the memorization of the combos, but it's a layer that everybody understands, right? There's just too many layers. Like, shooters, like, I mean, it's just common sense, right? There's not a lot to, like, the movement is clear. You just got to get used to it, right? Like, I'll move left, right, move the camera. And then from there, okay, grenade, knife, and shoot, and then reload, right? It's something that's always evident as you're playing, or it'll auto do it, and it'll circulate. But in the fighting game, you could sit here and just only use jab and heavy and never use medium, and then it's something you have to now add on top of your repertoire. Like, there's something constantly that's being added to it. Again, that's why combos seem so fucking hard. Memorizing the notations in itself back in an order is not hard. It's making those button presses and leading into it that makes it mad hard. Shooters don't have that issue. A lot of the other genres don't have that fucking issue. And then this is the final thing. So that's the thing. That's just being able to actually be like, yo, I know how to touch my character. We're not talking about being good. Just like, okay, I know his buttons by heart, and I know some back-to-back like 3-hit combos. Now we go to motion inputs. Motion inputs is the single-handed reason why, to me, fighting games are just different than other genres. And what separates easy game from a hard game, right? This is what separates like easy dead games or like button match, actual button match, right? They're only one button. This is why the number of buttons matters too. Fighting games at minimum have 4 to 6 buttons, and you go with games, oh, there's only one button, right? Everyone knows when you go to play Smash, the DMC, it's a night and day difference. There's a lot more depth. There's more buttons. There's more memorization. The devs actually put a lot of thought on how you put these buttons back to back, right? So why Ninja Gaiden is notoriously one of the fucking hardest games of all time. So let that fucking sink in, you know? Another reason why Souls is considered easier than those as well, for good reasons. Bro, there's only like really 2 attack buttons, and the weapons don't really, they change maybe range and stat, but how you interact with it, not so much, you know? You don't have to remember a different combination when you use a, like, no, you just know, oh, light, or heavy or some bullshit. Whereas in Devil May Cry, depending on the weapon, everything has different range. This is plus, some shit. Like, there's a lot, let that sink in, with like maybe 2 to 4 button fighter or some bullshit, right? Like, these are just the buttons. But then there are things that we know as execution. That means the timing you have to do in between it, right? And that's just, okay, memorizing the right buttons and timing. Fighting games add that layer, which is what I said is the motion input. Now, motion inputs by themselves, I would consider medium difficulty. Like, you go ask the person to person. Either people think it's the hardest, most impossible thing in its gatekeeping, or some people, for the most part, say, okay, it's actually easy. Anybody can do it. And I'm down in the middle where, yes, if you've never done them before, they're going to be hard. It's something new because it's not just simply pressing a button. It's like, I would say there's levels, right? Level 1 is simply like either pressing back or a button. Level 2 is pressing 2 buttons or pressing a button after the other, and then maybe like down back. Level 3 would be motions, because now you have to go through okay, here's my analog position, and now I have to perfectly do 1, 2 to 3, right? Whether it's down forward, you know, into down forward, or back, neutral, forward, and a button, you know, because you're going through 3 processes where it's the motion and the thing. The thing is, you can mess up. Here's the thing: you can't mess up pressing a button. You can mess up pressing the 2 buttons at the same time, but it's easy to correct yourself, right? You can say this is the way the difficulty increases. You don't just press 1 button; you can press 2. You can mess it up, or what if you press square, triangle? No, maybe you would do square, triangle. Okay, whatever. But it's easy for you. All it is remember, and you'll get it. But with a motion input, even though you remember the motion, you can fuck up. You have to actually train and make up muscle memory. And this is why, to me, I always consider fighting games like an esport, because in sports, there's a difference. Like even just kicking a ball, same like with buttons, you know, whether it's just football. This can relate to the most, because it's one of the most high skill ceiling sports in the world. But any sport, you just simply doing something, everybody can kick a ball, everybody. But to actually get it to where you want to, you have to practice and get used to it, make it muscle memory. Oh, that's cool. And then you got to learn how to dribble or something. All right, cool. That's like you said, whatever. Like COD, similar to getting used to aiming, moving. But then here comes what separates big dick sports. There are techniques. Like, oh, like the chilena, or the bicycle kick, as they call it, and it's where you fucking launch the ball. So now, first of all, you have to launch the ball perfectly. So that means you have to get to your normals and then make the ball roll into your foot, make it at the appropriate height, then do a whole ass backflip and kick it perfectly right over you and into the fucking net. Very clearly, there are many steps you can mess up in that. Same thing with motion inputs. And that's why, to me, when I first played NBC, I thought they were God. I was like, what is this? I never in my life have I seen anything like this. The closest is maybe God of War, but the difference in there is because it's separated. It's like you press square, you're in something, and then you do it, right? I think when you do that, it separates it and dumbs it down. Because there's games that do, even Resident Evil, like quick time events. They're basically like quick time events. And to me, I feel like they're great for getting used to them. So people say, oh, I haven't done these. Like, you've done them before. It's different when you have to do it on your own, right? It's a difference between when there's a button that lets you auto dodge and when you have to manually dodge. Anyone who's played games that has this with quick time events, or like Resident Evil is a good example, where like, oh, when it has like a very clear enemy that you can dodge, you just press R1. It's still a bit hard, don't get me wrong, maybe one of the harder examples actually, but manually dodging is a lot tougher because you're a lot more vulnerable. Like anyone who's played any game, if you haven't played a game like this, then you're probably not a part of the conversation, where you don't understand the inherent difference between a game that has like a really strong built-in parry or dodge compared to something where you have to manually fucking do it, right? Like an example, like Souls rolls, like it has inherent invulnerability, whereas dodging in a game where that's not a thing is much fucking harder, you know? And sometimes the games are intended, like it doesn't feel like it, but it's like, no, we're doing it. And that's where fighting games are in that sense, where quarter circles are, right? And that's that, again, once you get used to them by themselves, if you're just doing it by yourselves, they're not that hard. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they are hard to execute consistently. That's the key thing. But to just do them, people can do them by accident. They do it all the time. That's why, and what's even funnier is they actually used to be harder. Here's the funny thing. We make this conversation, we're just talking about modern fighting games, right? They used to be way fucking harder, bro. Like, literally, quarter circles were actually nearly impossible. That's why the whole debate of it, like, they're doable. They made it more lenient. There's even shortcuts. Codes can attest to this. But I loved it. To me, I liked it because there's nothing I had to actively go out of my way to actually practice, right? It's like the equivalent of just sniping, but then being like, oh, a good sniper, and then, oh, learn how to quick scope, right? It's like the hardest technique you can think of a game, but that's the forefront and center of what's the bread and butter, from your neutral to your combos. And there's ways to do it, right? You could suck, you can mash it and do it, and it's fun. That's why I said, like, finding the people that are around your level is the most important, because you're not trying to fight someone. Like, say if you're first playing fighting game, you're not trying to fight the dude who can consistently do that shit, right? When I was playing NBC, and this is the funny thing, I talked about it, it took me a year to get the hang of it. That's the average skill level, right? What talent is how fast or how just little to no time it takes for you to learn a technique or master it, in a sense, right? It could just be natural. To me, I'm average. Apparently the average time to, quote, master, and by the way, that's not truly mastering, right? That means that you can consistently do the quarter circle without messing it up in neutral and in combos, right? Not accounting for big pressure. Like, you can be pressured, but you can still handle it. And that's what happened. I would all mash, and then I would do it from far away. I would spam, but then they would get close. I would get nervous. And even then I would say, like, I would do like 9 in a row, right? It's like, oh, you go, like, you could do 2 in a row, 3, 4, and obviously your execution gets higher. Then to be able to be consistent would be like 100 times in a row without messing it up, right? But of course, doing it under pressure and doing it when you're in pressure are two different. And see, that's what's different. Even under pressure, you can press a button, never fuck up. Press 2 buttons, never fuck up, right? That layer 3 is the mastery. And to this day, it's just such a hot topic. Like I said, quarter circles aren't the hardest thing in the world, especially not now, but they are something to still master. And even now, I'm arguably not the greatest quarter circle motherfucker in the world. And I've exceeded. It's something that I've gotten better over the years, you know? And that's the key thing that separates fighting games from every other genre. They don't really have shit like this. And if they do, it's not at the forefront of the game, nor is it as prevalent. And nor is the balancing really focused around that, right? This is not even getting into the strategy. Like, I feel like when you do this, it gets too convoluted and stupid, because in many games, like 99% of games where they want to bring this up, it was never the intended thing. This is where I want to get to why fighting games are just straight up built different. They come from an era, like, they took that, like, this glitch, like, combos were a glitch, actually. They went and took that and added it as a feature. The only other genre that really was like this was arena shooters. And this is where I want to get another topic about fighting games, is that this conversation is stupid. You're comparing a subgenre to genre. That is idiotic as fuck. You get what I'm saying? Like, you're comparing the hardest within a genre to the larger genre. And you guys, if you play other genres, you can see this is like same people who get some booty water turn-based game, and then you compare it to SMT. SMT is the hardest of the turn-based games. And then you go to RTS game. That's like the peak of strategy. You cannot put fucking Final Fantasy games in the same vein as an RTS. That's fucking stupid. Same as you can't put Call of Duty in the same vein as fucking arena shooter. Codes, you were saying?
Saying, also, say, like, driving wise, like, oh, You got like your basic crappy little AAA driving, or not even just a driving game.
Mhm.
Like, oh yeah, this is so easy. Then like they hop onto a driving sim.
Ooh, thank you. Yes.
Like, oh yeah, sure they're of the same genre, but they're of different subgenres.
Thank you. See, so that's the other thing is that, so to really point out to you guys, if you guys are trying to make the comparison of a genre to a subgenre, you are already wrong. Like, you're not a part of the conversation, right? On top of not being. And here's the thing, I'll show you guys the clip if I can find it. But oh, also rhythm games are another good hard one. Everyone knows, like, oh, just playing on easy, okay, cool, but then whatever. Like, I'm not saying that there aren't. Like, to me, there are definitely subgenres as hard as fighting games. Absolutely. I think we can all agree that the base level of a shooter, a strategy-ish, maybe depending, and like a fighter are inherently the same, right? Like Call of Duty is as easy as Naruto is as easy as Final Fantasy. We can all unanimously agree on that. But it's that you want to compare something that has that kind of layer of depth and that's built around strategy and shit. Just know, and this is what I want to get at. Think about it. Two MLG shooters that we still have that aren't as popular. Halo and Gear. Why are they some of the most MLG shooters, right? And that's going a little back to what we were saying, subgenres. Like, oh yeah, you can't talk about Counter-Strike's one of the highest for what I would consider stale shooters, right? But it still doesn't even reach the levels of somewhat of the arena shoot. And here's what I'm trying to get at, right? Is that there's layers like just what I call non-mobility shooters with your CODs and whatnot that don't give you a lot of restrictions. Then you have some in-betweens. Then you have arena shooters, which are a shit ton about movement. You can't, again, those kinds of games, it is easy night and day who does and doesn't know what they're doing, right? And COD actually got nerfed down. Like Advanced Warfare and even some of them ones with more movement, they're easier now because that movement was a huge gateway. It's like the difference between who can and can't Korean backdash and fucking tech. And it's funny because 3D fighters are definitely lesser than 2D fighters, believe it or not, because they don't focus on execution as high as 2D fighters, but it's a whole other thing. And again, you can't even debate. Like, to me, it's like, if you're not as good as me and as many games as me, this isn't an argument, you know? And unlike some scrubs, like, oh, I hate quarter shoot, like, no, that dude's a fucking scrub. Like, I'm actually fucking good, you know? And again, you guys can go check out the article from the SNK versus Capcom, dude. Really well articulated. But again, this is just something that gets me tight because it's just such a stupid thing. Because the thing is, bro, nooblets will even tell you, like, there's a huge fucking difference, right? But here, let's show you an example of what I'm talking about, and codes can watch it right here. Of someone, like, just in arena fighters, I would consider, to me, the only genres I would consider on the level of a fighting game, hands down, RTSs and arena shooters. Because there's some genres within a larger genre. And they're focused on MLG.
So here's a spicy question. What are the most skillful FPS games?
We never, just within
can make a
FPS.
lot of good arguments for this, but obviously there's no right answer.
Bullshit.
Nevertheless, if you ask some of the FPS veterans, a lot of them will tell you it's one of the arena FPS games. And in a way, they have good reasons. Well, there was this long period of time in FPS history where you'll be playing whatever new awesome shooter that came out that year, like Counter-Strike or Team Fortress or whatnot. But sometimes you will lose to opponents that you knew were worse than you were, but he only won because he got a better team or got lucky or something, right? And to prove to that person you're actually better in pure skills, you will challenge that person and go, duel me in Quake. And that's what arena shooters were for the FPS veterans. Those were games that could cut through all of the BS and randomness and try to preserve the best showcase of individual talent. They were the gold standards for competitive shooters for a long time because they require equal amount of excellence in aim, strategy, tactics, and kind of an unbreakable mentality. But I've noticed that there's not really a working definition for arena shooters. So what really is an arena shooter? Why do so many FPS veterans say they are the most skillful games? So how about we come up with some answers?
Here's another one.
In arena shooters, there are two things that are almost always present in the weapon system.
Basically, the Queen of
Number
Normals.
one, there's never an upper limit of how many weapons you can carry at the same time.
And this is the other thing. The other reason why other shooters is because they're limiting. Think about it. You have to movement and whatever. And he actually talks about it in a certain point. You guys, really good video. He talks about lineages, skillful movement. Like, again, simpler. You have to get used to. And here's the thing.
Defining features in
another thing is you have to listen to veterans. Like, imagine you're saying, "Oh, fighting games or whatever." Like, I can see Sajam. Sajam already knows. Will tell you, "Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like, Dirt Strike's one of the hardest fighting games of all time." Or old fighting games are harder. It's the same thing. Like, just old shooters were just harder, and they dumbed them down.
Shooters is the movement, and I really don't think any other types of games have the same depth and movement as arena shooters do, because unlike a lot of other games, especially shooters, if you're good at movement, you literally run and accelerate faster. You can make quicker turns, and you can jump a lot higher and more precisely. It takes quite a bit of practice to even just get a grasp on the various movement mechanics.
What did I say? Practice. You're not doing this if you don't know what the fuck.
I found out that only less than 1% of the Quake Live players actually passed the movement tutorial.
Less than 1%. Codes, can you think of another great PS3 game that probably less than 1% beat all the trials for that we love because the Steam version sucks? And same with the Booty Water 5K version.
I mean, third strike.
There you go.
Pretty easy if you turn on the auto parry.
Hell no, that you can't do it on trials. But anyways, great video. Highly recommend you check it out. So like, you know, you gotta break it down into what's into the individual. And the thing is, the biggest thing you compare anything that's a high skill is to sports and music. They've been doing this shit for years. That's why to me, I've said it before, what I think is and isn't an esport. Any dumbass that sits here and thinks a game that doesn't actually require practice just to do one thing, I'm sorry, that's not an esport. And there are people, and you know, they're scrubs who's like, oh, I don't want to have to practice just to do this one thing. Like people, like you will always have to practice to get used to, right? But to me, if you're practicing and it's only the overall game and not a single component, that shit's not an esport. Because here's the other thing. There are people who are renowned with it. I guarantee you there's someone out there, like me personally, I don't really like rocket jumping. It's something that doesn't appeal to me, and it's something I'm not interested in mastering, right? So, and some people, there's a dude who's known for the chilena, as we talked about earlier. When your game has so many different layers, again, layers or depth, there are things that people can specialize because each one has something different. Like to me, I'm not talented at quarter circles. Charges, I'm actually kind of weak. Shurikens, I'm a bit more talented. When am I the most talented? Command grabs. That's why I'm a really impressive for grappler. But I don't mean grapplers because I'm not a read heavy person. This is what separates it, right? The skill lets you express yourself, right? Because it's the three legs we remember: the mind, the body, and the heart. These generic games, I will say, like Homo, there is none of that. There is nothing to master, there's nothing to skill. It's simply, oh, I like to heal, or I like to do this, or I like to try to pretend I'm playing a shooter in a game that's not a shoot. All it is it's the same shit. The best person who plays this game or character insert that's weak as fuck is not going to play any differently than someone who's the worst. This is why fighting games really run. I think what's helped dilute this is the fact that fighting games have gotten way easier. Like hands down, like I went to play CVS Chaos. Doing a 3-hit combo is insane. Whereas now we have games like Dragon Ball, same with BB Tech. And that's why I feel like to me with fighting games we need to, I mean, think about it, bro. If Majin Obama didn't even consider JoJo's a fighting game, like come on, what does that say? So within our own genre, we're like, yeah, we're with them. We're like, this is what makes a hard game. This is OG, right? And then we think about if a game's just straight up too easy, we're like, that's not even a fighting game. Like it's even debatable. Mortal Kombat's not even considered a fighting game in Japan. Let that fuck. So to sit here and really sit how fundamentally based on difficulty we are, and you want to say, oh, it's not inherently harder than other genre. It fucking is. To some, it might be more than others. Don't get me wrong. To some people, maybe them aiming left and right, it's just inherently harder, right? But I'm going to look at this from an unbiased point of view. And here's the other thing too. Even if someone struggles with left and right, they can, all it takes for them is to get used to it, and they can get hella good. Like, good example, my sister, like she's decent as shit, you know. And hey, better point of view, I get to say, I'm gonna have some upload clips of, dude, I'm godlike as shit with a sniper. I'm decent as fucking Call of Duty in general. I don't play COD like that. I have like 24 hours in Cold War. That's the last new COD I played. Let's say from Black Ops 2, haven't really played shit. Then a Cold War, godlike sniper. All I've been playing is fighting game. And to be fair, some skills can definitely transfer when you're good, but you have to get really used to the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd have like barely 24 hours. And let's be real, I could probably club I've clapped some random clan members or some bullshit, whatever. I mean, I would say I got lucky. I'll admit it. Like, they're obviously clearly good. But like, come on, dude. And even the part of the reason I don't play shooters like this, I feel like, especially for like COD, like, I feel like, you know what? I feel like this isn't my cup of tea, right? Like, not that I don't like COD, I clearly do. It's just I like to go into things that I know I'm good at, right? As any smart human being should. And even in fighting games, like, dude, the weakest I'm in is Street Fighter. I just went into it because it's the best competitive one and has the most money. To me, I'm more of an anime fighter kind of guy. So let that sink in. Like, all the things I want to bring, like, dude, all of these I'm weak at, right? Like basically, better put, I probably have more talent in COD than I do in Street Fighter in a sense, maybe. But yeah, and again, going back to what I was saying is that Halo and fucking I forgot what the other game I mentioned, Gears, dude, one of them is just a nerf version of fucking Unreal Tournament. It doesn't have the movement. Like, you got rid of all the movement, but you added some supplements with like creative sandboxing shit. And then Gears is literally made by developers that worked on Unreal Engine, and they are like some of the top of what currently MLG has to offer, even though no one gives a shit, right? And look at that. They didn't have the forefront, but they carry that DNA and legacy of games that were built around them. And there's still more MLG than a game of COD that was from the ground up, and it wasn't built with that shit in mind. There's still more MLG. Like, a good example, the amount of COD players that suck at playing Halo is insane. Look, and let that sink in, bro. It's like the equivalent of Dragon Ball players going to BB Tag, right? Like, BB Tag's not that much harder than Dragon Ball, but like, we can. You know, the bigger problem is people don't actually like playing hard shit. Like, and here's the thing. I mean, I already talked about it. It's notorious. From noobs to pros. It's weird to me that we have people within our own shit saying, oh, whatever. And at the end of the day, it's just because they suck at other games because they barely play other games. To me, that's such an asinine fucking thing. Good shout out to Coldy for also saying that shit. Because it just is. Like, to me, it's like, don't say, and then here's the last thing too, is that me and the other dude, we teach a lot more, and we've seen it. Dude, no. I've seen people struggle way more with fighting games than any other genre. Hands down. I mean, arguably, Tekken's one of the harder ones to teach, actually, but that's because of how much shit there actually is. But once it's there, they're golden, whereas fighting games, or, 2D, Street Fighter and shit. It's like, I mean, no offense to anyone else, but no, me and him are better teachers than Sage and the other ones. We just straight up are, because first of all, we don't sugarcoat shit. We keep it 100% fucking real, and at the end of the day, Sage, like, I could call him, like, you don't invest the amount of time, effort, and shit that I do. Like, you say, oh, whatever. You just, there's a difference between time, whatever. And again, at the end of the day, he's a commentator. It's not like he has all the time, but like, dude, I've literally researched it. Dude, I fucking studied psychology. You can't touch it. And on top of that, I'm a natural teacher. Teachers have even told me this before. My grandfather was actually a teacher. So it's like, you're not winning this fight. I'm easily one of the best FGC teachers, and I can 100% tell you, I have seen, and I can see how people struggle far more with fighting games. And just because you take an example of someone that's doing good, like, no, that is impressive. Like, that's not uncommon. Like, you will see people that have their strengths. I've seen people that are really good at quarter circles. Some people that are really good at this. There are components. You can't take that one thing and be like, oh, look, see you guys, because they can do this one thing that's super hard for everybody else. It just means they're really talented for them. Like I said, for me, really talented at fucking full circles. Whereas like in a shooter, they're very, or again, like even like COD was an example. There's very few things outside of me, like I said, maybe quick scoping or some bullshit where you can really, you know, so it's like, okay, cool, we have one thing that you can really excel if you're talented. There's nothing else really here. You know what I'm saying? Like there aren't things in other games that are deep enough to show if you're talented at something or not. That's just human beings in general. To take that example of what someone's talented and then be like, oh, look. It's just, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. And at the end of the day, you know, people can get lucky, right? I've seen people have nasty execution in practice, but when you actually put them in a match, it doesn't happen, or maybe whatever. Like, for example, my friend, Charlie, he sucks ass, like, whatever. But even me and my brother can agree. Like, my brother's a much better player than me. I'm, like, whatever, a really good goalie. But this dude had an unnatural, canny talent to take the ball away from us. He still sucked, but man, did he have a knack. And that's another thing to indicate, is the fact that if someone can shine, even though you can suck, like, everybody has something they're good at. If there's enough depths and layers, that one thing will shine. It shows you how deep that game is. And other games just don't fucking have that shit. Like I said, I don't want to fucking... bunny hop, I'll fuck with. But I'm not fucking with fucking rocket jumping. I just don't like losing health as an advantage. It's something that never struck a chord with me personally, right? There are other techniques I would rather master, right? To me, that's like a mentality kind of, you know? And that's what it is. And to me... to other shooters, if it's only a mental thing, then it's like, oh, it's pointless, right? But, you know, like, oh, I don't like using this. I don't like using healers, so I never use them, right? But if that's the only layer to your thinking or strategy, then that's whack. There's just no fucking point. Another good example, oh, harder RTSs have execution. They're very brain focused. And again, they have neutrals and matchups. Well, for them, dude, they have literally like keyboards per second or types per second. Like, there you go. That's execution. You know, you have to actually like have the dexterity, and it's something you don't just like. So with anything, when you type, like, you get better with time. You have to actually put in effort, and that's the number one thing. Again, why people don't play fighting games like that. You have to actually put in effort to get good. Most games you just get good by playing, and even in fighting games you do. But to actually be like what most people would, like, a good example, like Genbu and Tekken. Oh, you have to put in effort. Call of Duty players, from what I've seen, almost never have to put in effort to get good. If they do put in effort, it's just a further again, like, it's like I would say just quick scopers, right? And more like a flex, or then they do because now they're getting money. But no, like I said, the amount of people I've seen, oh, I want to be COD a pro, but not a single one actually ever practiced. And it's something that even I understood. Like, I understood in a game, it's not a super heavy practice game because it doesn't have like crazy shit, but it's a team game, so it's about, you know, composition, yada yada. And that in itself, comparing a team game to a single, like, that's different, you know, levels of difficulty, and even then there's still harder games that involve teams in fucking COD, right? By the way, I should say this is not the shit on games like COD and MK. I personally think they definitely are MLG. They're just the bottom of the totem pole for MLG. You know, like, by MLG I mean like that's hard, or you know, MLG, you know, it's like, oh, this is fucking sick, this is MLG and shit. But yeah, no, it just is. I don't know. Like I said, people are so wrong on so many layers. Like I said, you're comparing a subgenre to an entire genre. Boom, you're already wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, I look at it statistically, and it's like 3 strikes you're out, and they're already 3 strikes. Like I said, you're comparing subgenre to genre. You're not as good as me, and you're not as good a teacher as me. Get the fuck out. You know, like, GG's, take my fucking hand. You're not a part of this conversation. And like I said, the dude did a way better article, and this is just me ranting and bitching. You want to talk all that shit, you say, Jan, I'm loser. 1v1 me in like fucking every fighting game, every shooter, every RTS, and then you're gonna be like, damn, this man cooked me. That even in your game, like, oh man, I'm Street Fighter, dude, I'm gonna cook your ass in Street Fighter, bro. I got like 5 master ranks in that bitch. Like, I got that shit within like the first 2 months, bro. Yo, you getting cooked. And that's why I'm greatest gamer, you guys. And yeah, and that's the final thing. Like, that's why I fell in love with fighting games. That's why, like, dude, fighting games have ruined me. That's the final thing I say. Fighting games have ruined me. I don't like playing like easy games no more. Like, I was thinking, if a fighter has like less than 2 attack buttons, bro, I'm starting to. You better do some shit, or I'm gonna get bored as fuck. Like, I need some shit. You don't even got like a combo. Just give me some shit. You know, it's like, well, also, fun fact, I get the Resident Evil 6 wallpaper. Like, don't get me wrong, I hate Resident Evil 6's campaign, but it's the most MLG RE6, and we all fucking know. Anyone who knows, you fucking know. Like, that game's got deft. And that's why I think it's the most redeeming feature of it. I'm not saying that shit's good, though. You got me fucked up saying that shit. But yeah, no, those are my thoughts, and hopefully you guys hear more from the Vibecast. Feel free to check it out here, somewhere posted below, their thoughts on what this video is, since we're postponing the Vibecast for today. But Codes, your thoughts? More? I'm glad you had it on earlier.
Put it simply, get good.
I mean, you Codes, you definitely agree that fighting games are some of the hardest genre, right?
I don't know. I'm not really in it like that, so
But you can agree that like going into a game and then you have to learn combos and quarter circles. No other genre has some that learning curve shit like that, right? The
well,
only game
aside
I
from
could
like
think
Mortal
that.
Kombat,
Oh
that's
yeah,
not really
damn. See.
motion input. It's just like a bunch of random like up, down, backwards, quarter, not even a
Yeah,
quarter.
and
Whatever.
the only game I will sit here and be like, it has a harder learning curve than fighting games, and maybe there were more. Resonance of Fate. That game took me an hour just to even be like, okay, I can do something. That game has a fat ass fucking learning curve. Ain't bullshitting you that. But yeah, the another one someone said one of the most skill focused games is easily rhythm games because there is no whatever. It's just you and the game. It's like I agree with that statement because yeah, there's no random bullshit at all. For as much as we like to say that for fighting games and maybe some in arena, there's always some. It's humans, and humans sometimes are just inherently random. So there's always some random bullshit. Especially with how read heavy modern games are getting, and I hate that. I hate luck. Check out Corey's video about luck versus skill, and fighting games lean way too more towards luck now than they do skill, in my opinion. And 3D fighters are way too much luck over skill. Fuck that shit. But yeah, there you go. That's the video topic today. Feel free to like or don't like, don't subscribe, but definitely leave a comment below and glaze me and why we know fighting games are the hardest. I mean, I don't know. It's just too much. Like, look, everybody says this shit. I haven't heard there's a developer that's making a fighting game that's gonna be like not a fight. Like it's a fighting game, right? Like got combos and quarter circles, but it's at like open world or some shit, and he doesn't want to call it a fighting game because he's scared of the stigma that fighting games have. Like, come on, if that's not an indicator, like legit a whole fucking whole ass indie dev, then I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, Codes, how do you want to end it off for the YouTube video?
I have no clue.
Okay, fine, we'll take that.